Hey guys, welcome back to Hot Thing. Today, you see it, we're going to be not only smoking this brisket, but we're also going to be trimming it up. This is my first time actually trimming a brisket, so guys, make sure you be nice to me in the comments. Thanks a lot. As you can see here, I'm going to be trimming some of this fat off of the brisket, and some of this stuff is really, really thick. And I have a couple of knives that I'm using. And one of the things I noticed, I forgot the exact weight of this particular brisket, but you really lose a lot of the weight of the brisket. Not necessarily the meat, but this particular brisket has a considerable amount of that fat that wouldn't render, even if you heated it up, wrapped it up, or whatever. So I'm just taking my time. As I stated before, this is my first time actually trimming a brisket. And one of the things you have to do, guys, if you're going to cook, you're going to have to go through trial and error. You're going to have to make some mistakes. But a lot of this fat is that fat that will never render. But what I'm going to do is speed this up, so you guys don't have to be bored with the whole process. But as you can see, some of that fat, man, is just really, really thick. This brisket, unfortunately, had a lot of that thick, hard fat. So I'm just cutting it out, taking my time, trying to do a little bit of surgery. Now you can really start to see the brisket. That line of fat right there will never render, guys. Anybody who's cooked a brisket before will tell you that fat has to come out. And unfortunately, on my fat cap, a lot of that fat was hard. So I had to take more fat off of it than I really wanted to. I just didn't want to have a brisket that was full of fat, that didn't render. As you can see now, it's starting to take shape. Just trimming it around, trying to make it somewhat aerodynamic, as they would say. Not looking bad at all. It's ready. I'm getting the smoker heated up as I go back in and get ready to season this thing up. Very simple seasoning, using some salt, kosher salt, not a whole lot, and then using some Flavor God honey barbecue sauce that I'm using right here. And as you notice, I pulled up the flat piece of the brisket from the point and the tip, and you can actually see that piece separates right there in the middle where I took that fat out. And putting some of that coarse black pepper on this particular brisket. And again, remember, right there in between, that's a part of where the point and the flat separates. But you can still cook both pieces together. And I just enjoy, man. I don't know about you, man, but I enjoy grilling, and I'm needing to get more and more videos recorded, because the content is there. I love to be able to use different grills, and this is going to go as you're seeing on the pellet grill. There it is, all seasoned up. Now it's sitting as the smoker comes up to temp. And when you look at the smoker, I actually have a smoke tube. Now we're on the smoker. I'm using the smoke tube for extra smoke, because sometimes with this Pit Boss pellet grill, you may not get as much smoke as you would like. Here we go. We're probably that's about 3 hours in. That's about 3 hours in there. You can see it's starting to render some of the juices, and I had to move my smoke tube because it was over by my thermometer. And it's looking good. Looking good. If you've never trimmed a brisket, don't be afraid. Just go in and just don't necessarily overdo it. This is the finish. As you can see here, that light part is actually hard. That's hard. So it did create that coat. This is after wrapping it. I put it back on the grill for a while. Didn't want to bore you all with video of that. And now this is This is after the finished product, after being in the cooler for an hour and a half. I'm separating the flat from the point, and I'm going to trim it up. See right here? You actually, I'm actually going to show you where the point and the flat is. That's the point, and this right here is the flat. It turned out very well, to be honest with you, considering it was maybe a 10-hour cook, because I went very low and slow because I wanted to make sure the smoke was in there. Now let's trim it up a little bit. Let's trim it up a little bit. I mean, let's start to slice it. See the smoke ring? And a lot of times people will squeeze the briskets, and as you can see, it's not overflowing with a bunch of juices, but believe it or not, it's very, very tender. You see some people squeeze their briskets and they have juice coming out. That just means they had a bunch of fat in there. Fat is flavor, and I'm not upset with that. But this one was actually more tender than it actually looks. And it was actually more juicy than it actually looks. As you can see there, it's got the bend. I may pull it apart. Yeah, there you go. Pull it apart. It comes apart pretty easily. And this one, it had a lot of that fat that wouldn't render, so I cut all of that off. But at the same time, it had a considerable amount of marbling throughout the brisket. So I'm thinking or believing that was something that actually helped maintain that moisture throughout the cook. Turned out real good, man. Real good. Smoke ring is there throughout the brisket. And this is actually, like I stated, this is actually the flat. And the flat is the what I would consider the tougher meat, because it doesn't necessarily have all of the fat tissue in it like the point. And you'll see the difference as I get ready to trim up the point. But this one was really good, man. It was more than enough that we needed. Just my wife and I and my son, only 3 of us. So we had enough that we actually ended up putting some of this in the freezer. So yeah, so I cut it all the way down. I even gave a little bit to my buddy Leo. Leo's our little Shih Tzu. He loves, that's my cookout buddy, my smoke buddy. He's a little Shih Tzu. This is just a piece of that point. Look how tender that thing is, man. That point is really, really tender. This is where you get your burn ends. Not from this particular piece per se. I guess you could, but you can see how it's falling apart. That thing was just so tender. This next piece, I just tasted a piece, and it tasted really, really good. But now I'm going to show you the actual piece where you get your burn ends. Look at this. It's definitely got the smoke ring working, and it looks like I'm sawing it, but that's just because I speeded it up, guys. But this thing was just so tender, and it rendered really good. I honestly believe that cooking a brisket is very challenging, but I told my wife there's some of those burn ends right there. I was just telling my wife that it's not necessarily my favorite, but like the video, guys, and